Tommy Jewell,
Present.
Matthew Ray,
Present.
William Walker. He was here. I see him.
Present. Present.
Mr. Stewart,
Present.
Diane Layden. Present. Debbie Strongin, I see her too.
Here.
Richard Clark, if he could come into the meeting, he will virtually. Michael Wismer,
Here.
and then Ms. Giacchi.
Here.
The chair will declare a quorum, and we're then open for business. Item 1 on the agenda is the consent agenda, approval of the minutes for the January 9 meeting. Oh, here comes Daniel.
I'll get it.
Thank you.
Daniel should be able to badge in. Daniel,
Oh, he has.
He has access.
He has.
Welcome, Daniel.
how many employees you just? Did you watch it?
I believe Danette sent out the minutes. I know I had an
Yesterday.
opportunity to look at them.
I had a correction.
You had a correction.
Mhm.
Okay.
It was just that I was at the meeting in January and it has me listed as absent.
I don't recall you being here.
You were
Yeah,
on the
we
video.
were there when we discussed the vote and we were there when we talked about the meeting coming up.
I don't even have you on the video or
Yeah.
anything.
I should be. I mean, this was just last month,
Last month, we went to the county commission meeting.
right? But I'm talking about this meeting that happened on the 9th.
No, the sheriff was there and you were not. And the sheriff praised your town hall in the South Valley and you were not
Oh,
here.
so then it was the meeting before that, well, when did we talk about the vote? I thought that was that.
Well, we had a couple of meetings in December.
Right, but I
In addition
thought,
to having the
Okay.
luncheon, we had a couple of meetings.
all right, well,
One was
I
specific.
had myself as listed as being there, so.
My
I mean,
recollection
my
could
recollection
be
was
off.
that we talked about the vote. and
Yeah.
Michael Wismer said, you know, that we should delay it until the next meeting. And so that's what I remember. If you say I wasn't on there, then I will go back and look
I
at
got the
that,
video, but I didn't.
you
see
know,
you on
but
the-
yeah, I was,
You were on by Zoom, is that what you're saying?
no, I
Well,
was
I
here.
can definitely tell you weren't present.
Okay.
in person.
No,
Okay, then I will,
But I think you're correct
defer.
about, in reviewing the minutes. I know that, Mr. Walker had said, well, let's just go ahead. And
Mike
go on.
Wismer, yeah,
And then Mr. Wismer, did say some things about
Yeah.
postponing the election,
right.
but, you know, unless you were invisible.
Well, I wasn't invisible, but that was my recollection was that about Michael talking about delaying it and Jim was saying, let's do it. And then we talked about the upcoming presentation and things like that. So, okay, well, then I will trust that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I at least have my notes listed as for January 9th. So I guess I made the wrong date on there, so that's,
Well, I'm not sure.
but like I said, I will defer and then
Okay.
they always can be amended. Those minutes can always be
Yeah,
amended.
of
And I'll
course-
just go back. I mean, I
Of
know
course, it's
that,
recorded.
yeah.
It's
And so I'll go back and I'll take a look and, you know,
Okay.
but in the meantime, I will defer
All right,
to that.
anything else?
Good.
Is there a motion to approve it? Of course, subject to review. Is that,
So
Madam-
moved.
is there a second?
A second.
Been moved and properly seconded that the minutes from the January 9 meeting be approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll defer.
Okay. So those minutes are approved again, you know, subject to any review. And item 4 on the agenda then is public comment. I know we have a member of the press present. She, I believe, indicated she's just observing. But are there members of the public, Danette?
No, I don't
who
have anybody else.
Indicated a desire to speak?
No. Nobody was on.
Anybody on that we haven't recognized? Hearing none, I do not think that there's anybody here for public comment. And we'll then move on to the sheriff's office comment. I don't know that we heard from the sheriff, did we? Didn't
He
Well, Daniel's
came,
got a hand.
Daniel has some.
He did give me a phone call. He can't make it today. I think there's his father who has a birthday. And he did want me to inform the board that he has received approval from the Bernalillo County manager or the HR to create a compliance officer. That officer is to be tasked into reviewing officer court appearances, following of IAs, following of their BCSO policies, to identify issues that are currently in the media early on. He will be reaching out to members of this board.
Can you speak louder?
Sorry, the sheriff got approval for a compliance officer. That officer is going to be responsible for reviewing officers going to court, seeing what the track record is, if they're going to court or not, and reviewing trends.
Thank you.
And whether they're following sheriff policy, IAs. And part of that process, before he finishes it, I believe he already advertised it. He's going to be reaching out to members of his board to see if someone would be willing to be on that hiring panel. Because I think he believes he values the input of his board.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for conveying the sheriff's comments to us.
Did he say it was an independent one or it's still under the sheriff's office? So the compliance
I would
officer,
think anybody he hires would be under the
so,
sheriff's office.
so he wants a compliance officer, but it's under his purview. Is that right?
I don't know the specifics of it.
Okay. But it's a question we can ask him.
Other questions or comments regarding the sheriff's brief input to us? And you all may have noticed that I put an item on the agenda, and maybe it's related to that sheriff comment about the compliance officer, but I think a little bit differently. So at any rate, I think that's probably it with respect to the sheriff's office comment. And we'll then move on to old business under item 6. 6A is election of chair and vice chair. As you all know, I made a commitment to you to conduct that election, so I'm definitely here for that purpose. Unless there's unreadiness, I'll go ahead and open the floor to nominations. Is there any unreadiness? Madam Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'm not unready. I just have a question, Mr. Chair. Is your resignation from the board effective immediately upon election of a new chair, or is it effective upon the county commission appointing somebody to fill your spot?
Well, thank you for that question, Madam Chair. I will certainly ask Daniel, but my understanding is I can stay until replaced. And
Great.
so right now, I think I would stay until replaced if that's going to happen fairly soon.
When you say replace, are you talking about replaced by an officer or replaced by,
You mean
an
the officer
appointment.
comes of chair and vice chair?
Yeah.
No, I fully intend with this election to not be chair.
Right? But when you say until you're replaced, you're talking about an appointment from the county, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think I occupy one of the district seats, and so I think it would come directly from the chair.
You know what District 3?
Commissioner Brown.
It's on the agenda.
Oh, Barbeau is the one that
District 3.
Barboa, huh?
does appoint?
Would be my.
For that district, yes.
So with that clarification, are we then ready for an election? Hearing no opposition, I'll go ahead and open the floor to nominations for the position of chair. Are there nominations for the position of chair? I see your hand, Mr. Stewart.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I nominate Matthew Ray as the candidate for chair of the SOARB.
Who did
And I
you,
Matthew
second
Ray.
And Mr. Chairman, I second that.
And I hear Mr. Wismer, is that correct? And see his
Yes.
hand. So the nomination and second are duly noted. Are there other nominations? Nominations for the position of chair. The floor is open for the nominations.
Do we have any, are we gonna talk about that?
Are we going to talk about
The
the position of
nomination?
chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now the floor is open. Are there additional nominations for the position of chair? Hearing none, is there a motion to close nominations for the position of chair?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that nominations cease for the position of chair. Inasmuch as there's one name placed in nomination, is there a motion?
Is there a discussion? Yeah,
Sure.
okay.
You want to discuss?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
do. I think the candidate is good. I also think he's new, brand new. And so there's not like a history yet of how he, I mean, I don't have any idea of how he will, the kinds of things that he believes in, how his reactions are to community, to issues. I haven't had any of that. So I think my hesitation right now is that, but I also recognize that the board has some new members, and I don't see that any of our older members with history have had any, haven't stepped up to want to do those positions. But I just want to put that in as, that he hasn't been part of this group for any length of time.
I guess when I started as chair, I didn't either, but we only have one name in nomination. I don't know why we're discussing it.
I have a question. Was this discussed with you? Did you accept the nomination? Did someone speak to you beforehand about being nominated? Did you agree?
Yes. A couple of members did ask me if I would be interested in serving as chair. I said if nominated, I would run.
Thank
So
you.
yes.
Okay, and vice chair?
Yes, I would like to move that we end this discussion and take a vote.
Unless there's something further, the chair will rule that nominations have closed. And in light of the fact that there's but one nomination, I'll entertain the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
One
I say
opposed?
aye.
Okay. So.
Did you get that, Danette?
Yeah, one opposed, Giachi. All those present are in favor.
You got my vote?
You said aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Congratulations, Matt.
Okay.
I'm here for you.
Well, I appreciate it. I assume that's the official handoff
Not quite. Hold
of the
on.
duties
Hold on.
or not.
Don't take my security clearance yet.
We're sorry, we were all
The
county
chair,
employees.
you're ready for me to leave too, then.
Congratulations.
No, not at all.
I think others are offering congratulations, Matt, so I wanted to give them an opportunity to do that. And of course, I need continue to the rest of the election. Of course, we elect the vice
correct.
chair
Correct.
as well. And so nominations will now be open for the position of vice chair. Are there nominations for the position of vice chair? Any nominations for the position of vice chair?
Judge, I have a nomination.
Mr. Stewart,
Judge, I nominate Debbie Strongin.
I thought she was going to,
she's there. She can speak for herself, but is there a second?
I will second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, it's been, the name of Debbie Strongin has been placed in nomination with a second. Are there further nominations? Further nominations? Ms. Strongin, are you seeking the microphone there?
No,
Okay. Are you ready for nominations to cease then?
am I? Yes.
All right, are there further nominations? If not, the chair will close the floor to nominations. And again, if there's commentary.
yes. I guess I understood at the last meeting that both you and Deb were resigning your positions. So that's not true. Deb is not.
Even if
resigning.
she did, she could run again. She
Well-
remains on the board.
Debbie's not resigning.
Okay, so Debbie's not resigning the position of,
She's being elected. So our bylaws, our rules call for us to have an election annually.
right.
So this is that election.
So I just wanted clarification because I understood that she was resigning, because I thought there was a number of discussions about who would, take her place
Mm.
for the report. So, okay.
Okay, so those in favor of Debbie Strongin for the position of vice chair, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? And Elena Giacchi raised her hand.
She's opposed.
Mhm.
Congratulations, Madam Vice Chair. I will declare that you have retained
Congratulations.
or won the position of vice chair. And we appreciate you staying on. And as with Matt, certainly I am here for you. So, of course, I have been here for you, and that hasn't helped the board. So
That's not true.
I look forward to you being vice chair once again.
Well,
So
thank you. But you
unless
have
there's a,
helped. Yes, I want to object to what you just said because you have helped tremendously. You've been an incredible asset to this board. And I know you don't like to make it about you, but a lot of this board is about you. And I mean, you came onto this board, you and I came on at the same time, and it was a really difficult time. It was very challenging because we couldn't even meet in person. We were meeting over Zoom because of COVID regulations, and you took on the leadership and you got this board to be a cohesive working group. You have always made a point of letting everybody have their say. And so I want to thank you on my behalf and on behalf of the board. You've been a tremendous asset. And I personally I'm sorry that you'll be leaving it all. And I hope it takes the county commission a while to find a new board member.
well, all of that, as usual, is much too kind, Madam Vice Chair. I appreciate it. And if not on the board, I certainly remain at you all's disposal. So.
Well, thank you.
We'll,
Yes, I have
well,
your number, so don't think you're safe.
well, I owe you dinner too, so. So I am ready to move on then from the elections to item 6B, which is the discussion on SOARB meetings. And it's my recollection, I have down here Strongin, but it's my recollection that Mr. Walker had concern in this area. So I don't know if you all have conferred. I'll defer to Madam Vice Chair or if she wants to pass it on to Mr. Walker, he can certainly, as our minutes reflect, launch back into his concern about meeting monthly.
I think it was Clark, Mr.
Yeah.
That had a concern.
Oh, was it Clark?
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I
That's what I
apologize.
thought too.
But I think, you know, I've spoken to a few people just very.
Can you speak louder? Can you
I-
speak louder?
I can't. No, it's,
It's soft.
sorry. You
It's
can maybe
okay.
sit closer to the speaker, but I'm speaking as loudly as I can. I think it has to do with the speaker at your end.
Or ears at our end.
It's at 100 now.
It's at 100 now.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I had it like
Okay.
at 70, I think.
Go ahead, you're heard.
Anyway, I think a number of people are interested in at least discussing meeting less frequently than once a month, with the proviso that if some major issue comes up, or if we become aware that, you know, a member of the public or members of the public have comments that they want to put before the board, then we could always schedule a special meeting. But by law, we have to meet quarterly. We've been meeting every month, and possibly a way to sort of segue into fewer meetings would be to meet every other month. That's been one of the proposals, and I'm happy to open up the discussion to anybody else that has an opinion on this.
And Matt, if you're ready to take over, please don't let me belabor.
All right, well, thank you. Let me just, if I may, just start with a few opening comments, if that would be okay. I want to just echo Ms. Strongin's earlier comments about our gratitude to you, Mr. Jewell, for your service, not just on this board, but your lifetime of service
Oh, thank
to
you.
our county and our state. You really are a giant in our community. And I'd be remiss to say that if I didn't have big shoes to fill, stepping into this role as chair. So thank you for your service. Ms. Strongin, thank you for your service as well. And congratulations on being reelected as vice chair. I look forward to working with you as we move forward in this board. And to all the members, thank you all for your service. Thank you for your vote of confidence. I will commit to doing my best to carry on the legacy that Mr. Jewell has exemplified over the last 4 years in this board, namely to ensure that every member has a voice at the table, regardless of whether that voice conflicts with one another, but everybody has equal rights as board members, duly appointed by the county commission. And so I will endeavor to ensure that that remains the same. Ms. Giacchi, I appreciate your comments, and I acknowledge the fact that I am new to this board. And there is a learning curve, and I acknowledge that, and wouldn't begin to claim to know the history or to even know all the inner workings of the board. And so I'll be relying upon each of the other board members to work together collaboratively, as it has for the last 4 years. Having said that, sometimes a new perspective is needed. Sometimes a new voice without some of the history can be helpful. And so I'm hopeful that I'll be able to bring that perspective going forward this year. So having said that, thank you again to all of you, and we'll return to our discussion. Item 6B, discussion of SOARB meetings, times, days, and frequencies. I think Ms. Strongin, you were discussing different options. Would you like to continue on or defer to someone else?
Who says who can speak?
So let me defer to Ms. Strongin first to finish her previous thoughts, and then we'll come back to Dr. Layden.
Oh, well, thank you. And I look forward to working with you as well, Mr. Chair. And I was just kind of throwing out some ideas of, you know, we can continue to meet once a month. We can go to once every other month. We can go to quarterly. We have to meet at least quarterly. I believe at one time that former Chair Jewell expressed the opinion that perhaps it was important to meet once a month, since we are intended to be a forum for members of the public. However, there is always the option, if we meet less frequently than once a month, to call a special meeting if we become aware that members of the public do want to speak. So really, I want to open this up to anybody else on the board to give their thoughts on where we should go with this.
Thank you. Dr. Layden, you had a comment?
Yes, I propose that we meet every other month.
Okay.
I would prefer that so that we maintain communications with the sheriff and with members of the public.
Thank you. Stuart has his hand up, and so does Mr. Wismer.
Is your proposal as a form of a motion or just a
I
recommendation?
move.
Okay, so it's been moved that we have our meetings once every other month. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Stewart?
I did not raise my hand, but
Point of
Okay.
I'd be all in,
It's
I'd be
Wismer's.
all in favor of every
Yes,
other
sir.
month.
I don't know that there's been a second to the motion.
Oh,
There is a
you're-
second.
You're correct. Thank you very much. It's been moved that we have our meetings every other month. Is there a second?
I will second that.
It's been seconded. Now open for discussion. Thank you, Mr. Jewell, for keeping me on track. I appreciate that, sir.
Mr. Chair, I think Vice Chair Strongin accurately reflects my concern. And the history is this board was created in a period where, there was dissent between the mayor and the commission. And I think certainly in that period, it was critical that there be
Yeah.
frequency in meeting. I'm concerned that we may be back in a period where there needs to be continuity in a form wherein the public can have a place to deposit, a repository for public comment. And this actually is, I think, a part of my discussion on the DWI scandal. My sense is that certainly the appearance of this to the public is that things are amiss and that there is corruption. And I think when we talked to the sheriff about that before, and Mr. Chairman, if I'm out of order and going into that, please tell me. But my concern is making sure that there's a place that the public can go and maybe that's addressed, even if you're meeting bi-monthly. But I think we're back to a period where there has to be a place that the public can take its concern without feeling, okay, well, I can't go to the sheriff's office because I don't know who's corrupt in the sheriff's office. And it's clear from this DWI stuff that there is corruption. So I just have that concern. And I know Mr. Wismer had his hand up to speak. So please, I've registered my concern.
Thank you, Mr. Joel. Mr. Wismer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It takes me a minute sometimes to unmute, but I'm here. I support moving to every other month, and I think it would work out with this, with the caveat that if we need to meet on a monthly basis, the chair certainly has the discretion to move us back to a monthly meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Plus, you guys also have the option, if you're meeting monthly, for that meeting to set for the next meeting. You guys all agree for the next month. So you could also do it in your meeting and or through you.
Ms. Diatti?
Could you repeat that, Dana?
So Dr. Layden, you can also, the chair can call a
I know
special
that,
meeting
but I couldn't.
and or,
We all need to speak loud.
okay, sorry.
Thank you so
And-
much.
And or during your every other month meeting, during that meeting, you guys can have a vote to meet the next month.
time.
Thank you.
So you have those two avenues.
Ms. Diatti?
And I would agree with Judge Jewell. I think the openness, at least for our group, can be that we're meeting every month. We don't have to meet for any length of time. Some of our meetings have been short because we haven't had public comment or we haven't had a long agenda, but we have at least given the avenue for the public to comment if they want. And I agree that in these times, and we can do the opposite of what Jeanette was just saying, is we could have a meeting scheduled for the next month. And if nothing is on the agenda and 2 weeks before, we might maybe just shorten the time we take can we shorten the time we can take public comment? I mean, it has to be a whole month that they be notified? Or could we say, like if we schedule within a 3-week time, if we don't have anybody, we could actually say, if there's nothing on the agenda, not to have that
Cancel
meeting, yeah,
right Up
up
to
to
the
that,
meeting, but I have to just send something out.
right. So I was just thinking, if we didn't have anybody offering public comment, in 3 weeks' time, we could say we would not have a meeting. But I do agree that having the meetings allow the public to feel comfortable that if I don't make this meeting, I could do a next meeting. And so I would agree with Judge Jewell.
Well, as way of reminder, there's a motion and a second on the table that we conduct our meetings bi-monthly. Any further discussion from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would just, as a point of order, I would just suggest if you go to a vote, that you go to a roll call vote. And by that, I mean, you just ask every individual their vote, yes or no. And that way it's recorded because I think this is not going to be unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So they want a
Thank-
roll call vote, and so usually I'll call the roll
Yes, ma'am.
call and take the votes. So
So,
Tommy Jewell,
Nay.
Matthew Ray,
aye.
okay. William Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Stewart,
Aye.
Dr. Layden,
Aye.
Debbie Strong,
Aye.
Mr. Clark is absent. So Mr. Wismer,
Aye.
and then Ms. Giacchi.
Nay.
Okay, so the ayes have it. We have 2 opposed.
Okay. Thank you very much. So on to new business number 7. Item number A, discussion of SOARB rules of procedure and code of conduct. Mr. Wismer and Ms. Strongin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll speak first, if that's all right with Ms. Strongin. I just wanted to propose, and it was sent out by Danette, the annual rules of procedure. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong agenda item. I'm gonna, in fact, I was looking at the Open Meetings Act resolution as item B. So let me just take a back seat and let Ms. Strongin talk about the code of conducts and rules of procedure because she did the most recent updates. Sorry.
So just as point of clarification for everybody, Danette had sent out updated copy of the Bernalillo County SOARB's rules of procedure, dated
This is-
January 9, 2025.
Was off of your meeting.
An update to the previous version, which I think was approved a few years back. So that's the item that we're discussing. Hopefully you all had a chance to review it. So Ms. Strongin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should mention that I have had Mr. Roberson had a chance to review the updated rules of procedure. And he said he has no problem with them from a legal perspective. So they are essentially what we've always operated under with a few changes. It's really what Michael Wismer originally drafted so kindly for this board way back when. And the only changes are, I mean, some of the things are such as updates that we don't have to provide for COVID regulations and that type of thing. So that's, that's what's in there, but otherwise it's fairly similar, I think, to what we've always operated under. So I would open it to any discussion that other people have or questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Strong and Ms. Layden, Dr. Layden.
What are the changes? What are the
Well,
changes?
I can't go through every single change. I mean, you'd have to read it.
I've read it.
For them-
What are
for
the changes, Michael? Michael?
Regardless of what the changes are, do you have a question about something that's in there? Maybe we can shorten this that way.
Well, I don't disagree with Dr. Layden in that what are the changes and what were the reason for the changes would be good to kind of hear about what those changes are and what was the reason that they got changed would be really good to know.
I'd like to,
So let me interject here if I may. Mr. Wisner, are you prepared to give kind of a summary of some of the main changes? I had a couple of thoughts just having read through both of them myself, but since you're the author of the document, I will defer to you to summarize some of the substantive changes that were made.
Actually, the reality is I worked mostly on the Open Meetings Act resolution from the last meeting to this meeting. And Ms. Strongin made the changes. I reviewed them quickly and didn't have any problem with them. And I'm really not prepared to discuss every little change. I haven't prepared for that. I'm sorry, I just can't do that.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jewell.
Ms. Strong, wasn't there a red line version? Didn't I see that?
Yes, but I don't have that handy at the
Okay.
moment. So I'm just relying on people to read it. If you have
Yeah.
a question about it or a
We've read
problem,
it.
with it, bring it up. So then whatever was in the last version, the prior version, is irrelevant. If you have a comment about something that either has or has not been changed, that's what I'm looking for.
I think Daniel and,
One of the changes I just saw was just more like of, basic Robert's Rule of Orders, like how motions are done,
Mhm.
how special meetings are enacted. That's what I saw from last one and like how you do that. So I just saw just your basic format for following how to do an agenda, how to do, which is no different when I looked at it, because I did pull up the county commission ones, just because for my own verification, because I'm followable, right? Because I'm that coordinator, so I'm like, I'm gonna make sure nothing looks different. So that I don't get that call from the top floor, like, what are you doing?
Right.
I just saw that basically it was just taking that, but kind of because the commission, they record their meetings and they do stuff, but it was just really taking that and then putting it like how we would do it, because theirs are kind of a little bit more vague, so this just is more
Specific.
instructions. Yeah, that's what I saw on the differences.
Mr. Robertson.
Yes, it also changed, instead of just identifying, saying the word board, the biggest change I saw is it says SOARB now everywhere. So it's specifically.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So, no, that's fine. I apologize. The biggest change is being called the board. That was replaced everywhere with SOARB.
Okay,
So it's specific to identifying the name of this board. That was in almost every paragraph.
Instead of general.
and have you noticed any other major changes?
Those are the only ones we can.
Thank you.
So I can
I have a question.
I can add a couple of observations from the previous versions. Again, I echo Ms. Strongin's sentiment that this was provided to the board to have read ahead of time. So, but just having said that, on page 4, there is a paragraph discussing the will of the majority while protecting the rights of the minority.
Yeah, I
Making
saw
sure
that.
everybody has a say, but also making sure that we're moving things along in a democratic process vis-a-vis vote. So that was one substantive change. On page 5, there was a bullet point highlighting dissemination of a draft annual report. That little paragraph appears to be new from the previous version as well, just sort of clarifying how we handle the annual report. and solidifying the option for minority opinions to be attached to the annual report. That was my observations on substantive changes. Ms. Giacchi, you had some comments?
I would agree. I read the report as well, but I had some questions. One of them that I noticed was the part about the rights of the minority. But I would also have liked to see what those changes were throughout. It sounds like, at least according to Judge Jewell, that there was a red line copy, and that, that would be great if we could just, we can easily approve it next meeting. If we could see that red line copy of what those changes were, I think it obviously must be in the pipeline somewhere. So if we could just be sent that, and then, it gives us a better idea of what was changed. Because I think I read it as well, but it was like, well, that sounds a little bit different. Is it this or was it that? And I didn't have the original document to do that.
Mr. Chair, and of course, if I saw it, then it was sent out to the board. So I'm trying to comb my emails.
Because
It wasn't sent out.
I didn't see one.
It was
The
not.
red line copy.
The
was-
document was sent out, but I don't believe it was a
Red
red
line.
line
Yeah.
showing the
Yeah.
changes.
Let me see something. What am I looking at?
Ms. Giacchi, are you phrasing that in way of a motion,
Motion,
or
yes.
would you like to
I would
state
like
your
to
motion?
I would like to make the motion that we see the red line copy or the changes that were made. And that way it removes at least that piece of trying to understand what was and what wasn't changed.
Okay, so if I can restate your motion and correct
Yes.
me if I got it wrong, there's a motion on the table to table this item
Till next
until
month.
we are able to get a red line copy version for
Mhm.
everybody to review
Right,
and put it on the agenda for next meeting for a vote.
correct.
That's been the motion. Is there a second? Seeing none, the motion fails. Any other motions or discussions on this particular matter, the rules of procedure? Ms. Strongin.
I move that we end the discussion and take a vote on whether we're going to approve these minutes, these rules of procedure and code of conduct at this point.
Okay, it has been moved to end discussion on this matter and to proceed with a vote of accepting the rules and procedures as amended. Is there a second?
I will
I will
second that.
second that.
Seeing a couple different seconds. Again, the motion to accept the new rules and procedures as amended.
Is there a discussion for
Is there open for discussion? Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Giacchi.
So I think one of my concerns was the rights to the minority, which there are none, where it talks about that the majority rules. And I think if nothing else, what we should do is acknowledge what that minority might be, especially if where you look at underserved communities, to understand that that may not be the majority of communities on the board, so that it truly is a minority voice, and to be able to at least somehow acknowledge that voice. Whereas it's like, well, it's the majority and that's the way it rules, as opposed to acknowledging that there may be an important minority voice, but it's not being heard, or it's not being part of the larger discussion. And so if nothing else, trying to figure out, rather than going the majority, doing maybe a roll call vote every time we have a vote, that would at least, everybody would know how everybody voted, and we can do that, right?
Anybody can ask for a roll
Okay.
call, but it has to be asked for.
For,
Yes,
got
and
it.
then the chair has to say.
Oh, okay, great.
So
that'd
that's
be good.
always an option. If you want a roll call, you request a roll call.
Okay, so for any vote, you can,
Anytime
Okay.
you want to request one, and then,
that'd be
then
great.
you can ask. For a roll
Okay.
call.
And
Yeah.
Nice,
I
thank you.
believe that's also reflected in this rules and procedures about roll call votes. So
And that would be,
I was just flipping through to see it. If my memory serves me correctly, it's
I see the motion.
The vice chair has her hand up, sir.
Ms. Strongin?
Thank you. Yes, I just want to point out that just quickly looking at both versions, there's always been a right to a minority opinion, and that is clarified with what's been added to whatever this section is, which is entitled "Enforce the Will of the Majority While Protecting the Rights of the Minority." So I'm not sure what Ms. Giacchi's comments are based on, but it would appear to me that this is drafted very much to give a voice to a minority opinion, since it specifically provides that a minority opinion can be attached to an annual report. So I'm not sure what the.
So,
Okay, hold on, Dr. Jewell, go ahead.
I don't know if that's
Dr.
an
Jewell,
elevation
Mr.
or
Jewell.
not. It doesn't matter.
You're sitting next to
I
the
have
esteemed
never-
doctor,
You
so
have a JD.
guilt by association, sir.
All right.
We hang out together.
That's
My
right.
fellow doctor and I. No, I was just gonna say, I hate to see us make a big deal of this. I think if we had both versions in front of us, that would eliminate the need for some of this discussion.
right.
Okay,
And I don't know, I thought I saw a red line version, maybe I did not, but it seems to me at a minimum, if somebody's got the old, Elena could review that quickly. It sounds like she has a few particular areas of concern. And certainly we want everybody to follow the rules of procedure, and I don't want anybody to feel unfairly put upon. And so we want them to understand the rules. My sense is that they will probably pass, as our vice chair has offered, but I don't see any harm in letting her do a comparison with.
okay. Any other SOARB members who haven't commented on this matter wish to comment? Mr. Wismer, and then I see your hand, Ms. Strong, will come to you after Mr. Wismer.
Yes, I would like to point out that there is, on page 5, when it talks about basic format for an agenda or item discussion, it does say that all votes should be by roll call vote. So that issue really goes away.
So all votes from now on will be a roll call.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Strongin?
I just wanted to clarify that there was a red line version, which I sent out only to Michael and Daniel, and I copied Judge Jewell on it as chair. But I didn't hang on to that once all the relevant commenters made their comments. So
So
Okay.
Michael or
So, Ms.
you
Giacchi,
might
go ahead.
Michael or you might have that red line if you could send it. You don't have it.
All right, so there's a motion on the table that we accept the rules as amended. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, can we conduct a roll call vote on the motion to accept the rules and procedures as amended?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but could I move to table until I'm able to determine whether or not I have that red line version? Is there heartburn about tabling or?
I think your first motion was for tabling and reconsidering. That failed because there is no second. The next motion that was on
Who's
Oh, I
was
didn't-
to
So
pass.
there's the motion on the table to accept these rules and procedures as amended. It's been seconded and we've had discussion. So I believe we move to a vote unless there's further discussion
Well, except
or a point of order.
he made a motion, I thought. I thought Judge Joe made a motion.
Give it a minute, okay? He's figuring it
I
out.
can,
You haven't.
the red line version was sent by Vice Chair Strongin to myself, Mr. Wismer, former Chair Jewell and Danette. And that, I don't know if that one went to everyone. That's the one that I reviewed. So I mean, the question, you were just CC'd. So, former Chair Jewell was CC'd as well, Danette. The request was for myself and Mr. Wismer to review. That's the one I reviewed. And I said, I saw no legal issues with it. I can forward that to the rest of the board, that email. And it has both of those.
Okay, so,
Well, it won't
if-
do any good if it's
We
it's
need
gonna
to
be
back up.
passed.
so
Yeah.
if I'm correct in my interpretation of the Roberts rules, and if I'm not, please somebody join in. So if Mr. Jewell has made a motion to table
Mhm.
the previous motion, we take action on the motion to table first.
Yes.
Okay, so it's been motioned to table this particular item until the next meeting.
I didn't say next meeting, Mr. Chair, but
Or-
that's fine.
Do you have a proposed time, sir,
Well,
that you want to wait?
If her concerns are simple
Address.
enough that she can review it, you all can go ahead and pass the renewed rules of procedure, operational rules upon her review, but I had concern about moving on if she had not had a chance to,
Well,
view the
I don't think
changes.
Dr. Layden did either, but I'm not sure.
We
about-
could print, well,
Can you
Daniel,
print it real
I have no access.
I can go upstairs
Daniel
and
can go
print
print copies.
But it'll take me 10 to 15 minutes. I have to go to the
Mhm.
6th floor and print them.
And then another period
So
of
it's up
time
to
to
you guys.
review.
Well,
you want to.
we've got some other agenda items.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do that and
Table it?
dispose of
Okay.
this.
So you could defer that
Because I
to
can
further on
even,
the
you have it
agenda.
on your phone there?
Any objection from the board from deferring item number 7A until further in our meeting today, further down on the agenda? Any objections for that? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the 7B, approval of the 2025 Open Meetings Act resolution. And for that, we'll turn the table over to Mr. Wismer.
Yeah, can-
I'm almost afraid to talk.
Hmm.
We did not, the Open Meetings Act requires that every public body in the state do an annual Open Meetings Act, approve an annual Open Meetings Act resolution every year annually. We didn't do so last year. We did so in our first year of existence, and it was basically very specific to operating under COVID. I took the opportunity to rewrite the rules, the Open Meetings Act resolution, and tried to make it in conformance with the Open Meetings Act in spirit and intent. I sent it to our esteemed attorney, Daniel, and he concurred with what was written. And so at this point, and I know it has been sent out by Danette for review from everybody. So at this point, I would just like to make a motion to go ahead and improve the annual Open Meetings Act resolution for 2025.
I seconded.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the 2025 Annual Open Meetings Act resolution, seconded by
Discussion.
Dr. Layden.
Thank
Any discussion? Ms. Giachi?
I just had a question because under regular meetings, it says regular meetings shall be held at least quarterly. So does that change if we talk about other meetings? Because what I heard you say is we could change
Yeah.
that just because
At
it's a.
least
at
meets
Okay.
per your ordinance, they want
Got
you
it.
to at least meet 4 times a year.
So
If you
it's
do
taken-
more, it's fine. If you do less, then you're.
Great,
You're against the ordinance. So the ordinance says at least,
at least.
Yeah.
Got it.
so minimum.
Any other comments, discussions on the motion to approve the 2025 Annual Open Meetings Act resolution?
Call for the previous question, Mr. Chair.
Call
Ready to
for
vote,
the-
Ready to vote? Okay, thank you, sir. All right, we'll do roll call vote. Ms. Danette, do you mind?
Not at all. Okay, so here's Mr. Jewell.
Yay.
Yay.
And this is on
Great.
just a special meeting,
Yes.
right?
No, this is on.
This is on them.
The open meetings, I mean.
Yeah. Mr. Ray,
Yay.
Mr. Walker,
Yay.
Mr. Stewart,
Yay.
She's got it.
yeah, I got it. Dr. Layden,
I
Debbie Strong,
Yay.
Mr. Clark is absent, Mr. Wismer,
Aye.
and then Ms. Giachi.
Aye.
So it is unanimous, ayes have it, or yays.
Okay, motion passes. The Open Meetings Act resolution has been adopted. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7C, report on the presentation of annual report to the Bernalillo County Commission. Defer back over to Mr. Jewell and or Mr. Strongin if you want to provide an update on how the presentation of the 2024 annual report was made to the Bernalillo County Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to report that Vice Chair Strongin and I represented the SOARB before the County Commission for purposes of presenting the annual report at its January meeting. I don't recall the specific date as I sit here. 14th. Okay. And I, my sense is that the report was well received by the commission. They had several questions. I was fortunate to have Vice Chair Strongin with me. I know she took the question about the red flag laws and handled it deftly. I think overall it was a good presentation, and again, it was well received by the commission. Several members were in attendance to include Ms. Giachi, Dr. Layden. Am I missing?
William
others?
Walker came.
William Walker.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and I don't know where we got crossed, but I know Ms. Strongin felt it necessary to make an individual presentation, which preceded the presentation, and she had concern about her specific report.
Ms. Giachi.
Yeah, what'd I say?
Strongin.
Oh, okay. I mean, Ms. Giachi about her her report from the listening session not being included, and indeed it was included.
Yeah, except I had, the last report I had gotten had 16 pages. I showed that to you, actually. It was like the last thing that I had was 16 pages, and you had mentioned 17 pages, and I did not have 17 pages, so.
Okay.
And the 17th page was where that was included, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that it, Mr. Jewell?
I would defer
Okay.
to Vice
Ms.
Chair.
Strongin, do you have anything else to add on that? Updates from?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur in Judge Jewell's presentation. I was once again impressed that the members of the commission had obviously read the report, and they had, assorted questions, which both Judge Jewell and I fielded. And I think that the commission continues to be very interested and supportive of this board. So that would be all I wanted to add.
Could I also
Thank you,
add,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman,
Jewell, go
that the
ahead.
sheriff and at least two, I think two of the undersheriffs were in attendance as
Mhm.
well. And they were well received there. And of course, some of the things that we were asking for, some of the recommendations were in supporting the sheriff and his request. So it all kind of blended nicely, I thought, and so I yield.
Well, thank you very much. And let me just say on behalf of the board to Mr. Jewell and Ms. Strongin, thank you very much for your hard work and your effort, particularly Ms. Strongin, and corralling all of the comments and getting the report done in a timely manner. And so appreciate all of that hard work and effort.
And Mr. Chairman, I hesitate to interrupt again, but I'm just real concerned. I thought we had the final report out to everybody well in advance of the meeting before the county commission. So I don't know, Ms. Giachi's saying hers only had 16 pages. I don't know what that is, but going forward, I just want to emphasize, it's difficult enough for the county to accept our reports. And then when it looks like there's internal dissent, it really, I think, makes it difficult for them to know that we are thoroughly working together on things. So, you know, I don't know what the mechanism was. I don't think, Elena, you were there at the January 9 meeting. I don't know where the confusion, but it seems to me we were discussing the presentation of the report at the January 9 meeting. And so I think I had the final at that point, if you did not.
I didn't. I still don't.
Well,
Still don't what?
I appreciate that. We did have several meetings on the report, one of which was to conduct a final vote. All members present had an opportunity to discuss it. So I'm not sure that there's really any further, discussion on the matter to be done. But Dr. Layden?
Hi, Mr. Chair, would you please check the website, check the annual report on the website and confirm that Ms. Giacchi's report about her listening session is the last page, is part of the final annual report on the website. Would you mind checking?
We can do that. Anybody can go on the website and read the report. You're asking for it to be done at
I'm
this
asking
moment?
that we confirm she has raised a question
Okay,
about whether her report was attached at the end. Thank you.
okay. So while Danette is pulling up the report, any other comments? I think Ms. Strongin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to clarify that I'm quite certain that Danette, in her usual efficient way, sent out the final version of the report that was voted on by this board to every member of the board. And it shows in the listing of who received that email. So whatever the glitch was, could have been resolved by a phone call. But at any rate, in future, perhaps if there is a question of that nature, perhaps it could be resolved in advance of going before the county commission with a complaint, rather than simply calling Danette or me or some board member and asking what's the deal. There's a reference to a page and a footnote, but then the page doesn't appear. And it all could have been resolved very, very easily. But I think Judge Jewell handled it, very smoothly before the board, and we moved on. So that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, Danette, were you able to find it?
Yeah, it has attachment 2 listening session notes. These are Miss Giacchi's notes.
In the footnote.
And then
it's
I'm looking for
underneath.
let me scroll back
Okay.
down for the foot.
It's there.
Well, I know, but the little footnote that is given when I
For
went,
more on the listening session on SOARB 11/8/24 meeting, it says www.burnco.gov's commissions and boards attachment 2.
so the little,
Yeah, so the
footnote.
little footnote
Okay, but
saying that
did
there's
it give
attachment.
it,
So that's page 10.
so it goes back to another, the
Page
footnote
10
doesn't,
is the footnote about the listening session, because there's a section that says, a little blurb on the listening session. And there's a footnote at the bottom on page 10 that says refer to attachment 2. And then attachment 2 is page 17 of the annual.
oh
report, the
yeah,
last
so I
page.
really was missing an entire page.
Which it's really page 15, but when you look at it this way, it says 17, because the first
Right.
page is the cover page, and then the next page is a table of
Okay.
contents, which in general don't have a number, that number.
Okay, I think we've covered that topic at length. Let's move on to item 7D. SOARB focus interest areas for 2025. This was an item that I had recommended for the agenda prior to today, obviously, and prior to becoming chair. So let me take a liberty to propose some thoughts and ideas moving forward in terms of how we structure committees. I don't anticipate us making concrete decisions today. My hope is that we would be able to just have a conversation about subcommittees. And I'd like to preface it, if I may. I printed out a copy for everybody, and those who are not here, we can email it to you as well. Again, just as a discussion starter. what I have noticed since being on the board is there's a variety of committees, I think 9 that were listed in the annual report. Some of them on very specific topics, some of them a little bit more broad. What I'd like to propose for us as a board for conversation today is perhaps streamlining the subcommittees. And by that, I mean reducing the number of committees, but making them broader. So rather than having a committee on every hot topic that comes up in the news, we find a particular committee that meets one of the elements of the ordinance. So if the ordinance says we have the duty to review SOPs, then we have a subcommittee that's on SOPs. So try to structure our committees to align with the ordinance of our duties. And then, of course, that's not to say that we couldn't create new subcommittees as the need arises. But I think this might be a better way to be a little bit more deliberate and strategic in terms of what the work of the committee. And along with that, I think it would be a good idea for each of the committees, whatever we decide on as a board, that have a brief charter or a brief description, a brief purpose, kind of outline what it is that that committee is supposed to be doing so that everybody is clear the roles and functions of the committee. And then, of course, the committees would report to the full board who would take actions. So that's sort of my thoughts coming into this. So what I will do is hand this just one page. It's just a proposed subcommittees. Again, it's not set in stone, it's just my idea. And just for purposes of discussion, suggestion on the committees that we might establish as standing committees. And again, I tried to link it to the line item in the ordinance that established the SOARB so that we're clear that our work, even in the committees, is aligned with what our duties are. So we're not straying from focusing on issues that are not germane to our mission as a board. So that's also one of the functions of trying to streamline the committee process. So having said that, I'll stop and just open it up for any general comments or concerns on subcommittee structures, interest areas, focus areas for this coming year in 2025. Dr. Layden, I seen you had the hand up.
I don't object to your list, but this board has also focused on behavioral health. It's not a hot topic. It's the reality of law enforcement today that officers and others need to be prepared to help connect people to social services. So if you're going to have this kind of list, I'd like to add behavioral health. If we don't approve this list, I request that that become a topic. And I would like to serve in that role. I've done so now for several years. Albuquerque Police Department, well, City of Albuquerque has Albuquerque Community Safety. They send out social workers on the streets to try to help people connect with services. The state government is just now passing bills to reestablish the state behavioral health system, which was destroyed years ago. Perhaps you are familiar with that. So that's my concern, is behavioral health. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussions, Mr. Stewart, or he's closing the shade? I thought that was a hand
Closing the
raise.
shade. It's getting a little
Okay.
bright out here.
He keeps doing that to me, and then I see his hand and I'm like, he has his hand up.
Any other comments or discussion, ideas on subcommittee focus areas?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Jewell?
I just wanted to commend you, a very thoughtful proposal. And I'm thinking some of the other specific concerns will fold into this. And so I welcome the streamline. Of course, my concern is separated as an agenda item and could be managed through the subcommittees that you have here. So I'm fine with your proposal.
So one thought process with this, with what you're saying, Mr. Jewell, as well as Dr. Layden, your comments, when we talk about a particular issue such as behavioral health, or I know red flag laws was also one of those, what are we talking about with regards to behavioral health, specifically with the sheriff's department? So that very well, just throwing out for suggestions, that behavioral health very well could fall under standard operating procedures. If we're talking about the sheriff's office procedures on how officers are gonna deal with behavioral health, it could deal with administration and personnel if they're
Okay.
hiring. So I'm not saying this is what we have to do, but my thought process was that some of these individual topics fit sort of in these buckets of depending on what we're talking about per the ordinance, if that makes sense. That was kind of what I was thinking.
Thank you.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
gonna say behavioral health could fall under citizen outreach too.
Correct.
No.
Yeah.
I was trying to
Yeah.
follow your logic.
Yeah.
If I may comment further.
Yes, please.
Thus far, I don't believe this board has examined the sheriff's budget or its personnel other than what the sheriff has told us.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we should. I want to say in my mind, okay, Matt, I need to send you a message. I worked for Bernalillo County 3 years as a personnel director and assistant county manager, and independent elected officials need to be dealt with very carefully, okay? Our sheriff comes occasionally, okay? I don't feel the need to review his budget or his personnel. I believe that's within his purview and that of the county commission. Now, I have wide experience with independent elected officials. What I'm saying, I'm asking you to consider what I'm saying. I think we need to draw a line where we don't go. And I think administration and personnel, as you've defined it, budget and personnel, I think that crosses the line. I don't think we should look into that. Thank you.
Any other?
Clarification on the ordinance, I think it just means like when the sheriff comes, it says they're getting a new budget for his unit in whatever, and he tells us about it. I don't think it means like a full dive
We don't
into, we're gonna
dive
go into audit. I think
Yeah.
it just means keeping up, like, do you have enough officers online? If you don't, what's your budget for that? Can you do that? And those are just general questions anybody in the public can ask. And you can also go into their website or the county website and pull the budget.
Yeah.
It's published every
I
year.
think at the last,
That would be more clear.
the last meeting that Sheriff Allen was here, when we asked him how the board could support or bring value, one of the things that he mentioned was the board supporting his efforts to hire civilian staff. So part of that admin or looking at budget and personnel would be getting additional information on what he's proposing. How can we support his request to the commission if we're not sure what that request specifically is? So that was sort of the thought.
Okay. And my own view is I think we should stay out of that. That is between the sheriff and the county commission. I don't think we should become advocates.
But it's in your
For-
ordinance.
It's,
Increased budget
okay.
or increased staffing. I think that's his job and he does that well. Okay? This has been generally a cooperative sheriff as opposed to the previous one. And I will send you something about that. Now, I say this because there's a risk that he won't come if you intrude, as he sees it, in his bailiwick. I mean well. You could lose your standing with him if you push this too far. Thank you. We haven't done this before.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Layden.
I mean.
Any other comments, Ms. Strongin?
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that in the limited review that I think our chair described, we're not making a deep dive into the finances, but we did in the last annual report recommend to the Bernalillo County Commission that they support to the extent feasible the sheriff's requests to add certain civilian personnel. And I think that is within our mission, which includes making recommendations to the Bernalillo County Commission. So I don't think that it's per se out of line. I think that Dr. Layden's observations about going too far with it also have merit, but I don't think we've even approached that line in the types of recommendations that we have made with respect to budget up to now. Thank you.
Any other comments, Mr. Jewell, and then Ms. Giachi?
And Mr. Chairman, it would appear, and you can confirm for me, that these areas comes specifically from our enabling ordinance. And so, you know, if there is some kind of red line with respect to reviewing the sheriff's office budget and personnel, it seems to me perhaps that needs to be addressed at the level of our ordinance. Is it your take that the commission, by
They won't do it.
enacting that ordinance, is telling us that those are areas we should be concerned with?
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. The way I read the ordinance, administration, personnel, as you see there, the reference to the ordinance citation, A9C, makes a reference to requesting information, doing analysis and review of disciplinary actions, internal affairs investigations, and operating procedures. That would be personnel type issues.
Okay,
Item number 9D in the ordinance gives the SOARB the ability to determine whether we would seek expert audit or review. So that would indicate to me that it gives the SOARB some level of ability to at least review budget and finances. And again, that's why I cited the actual section of the ordinance for each of the committees. But again, this is just for conversation's sake. And I'm sure we'll return to this in, future meetings. But
Thank you.
Ms. Giachi had a comment.
Well, actually, that's kind of what I was going to suggest, is that A9C, because I have seen it. It would be nice to have that listed so that it's like, here are the things that the board has asked us to do, and include that in this, because then I also think it addresses your
doing-
concern that it's not just willy-nilly, it's just about the ones that they have specifically requested our job to do. I think that takes it from, we're just looking at, to this is what we have been instructed to do.
Ms. Lake?
thank you. I followed closely the experiences of the Civilian Oversight Board at the city, which was taken apart a couple of times. County Commissioner Eric Olivas for District 5 was chair of that board and wrote a lengthy letter when he left that board. We are not qualified to oversee the sheriff's disciplinary decisions. Those are also personnel matters, and that information is confidential. I think the ordinance goes too far. And this was the experience of the CPOA, the Civilian Police Oversight Authority, okay, at the city. Now, I just because it says it in the ordinance doesn't mean that we have to do it or that we should do it. I believe that will be an error. We can't look at employee discipline by the sheriff. We can't look at that. That's my opinion.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Dr. Layden.
If you start doing that, I will leave this board and I will speak to the commission about it, because that will destroy this board. We aren't qualified to oversee the sheriff's personnel decisions.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comments. Any other comments on this? Ms. Strongin, I see half a hand on the screen.
It's a, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to ask if you, when you can, if you could email a copy of your listing to those of us that aren't there physically.
Yes.
today? Thank you.
I will email it to Ms. Danette,
Yes.
and if she can push that out. So
I will
What-
do so.
well, I guess what I'd like, seeing if there's no other comments, maybe if I could just sort of wrap up this topic, as we're hopefully we've got a couple more items, but what I'd like to, I guess, propose, if it's okay with the board, is coming up with a one-page just description outlining what each of these committees the role, the functions, the limitations for our next meeting. And we'll try to get those drafted and sent out well in advance for everybody to read. And then we'll just table this for our next meeting. And if we can vote on it next meeting, great. If we need more discussion, that's great. I think these are important matters to not be hasty in. But if that's okay with the board, I'd like to take on that effort. And I might solicit a couple of board members to help in just drafting those. Any objections to that? The chair taking the liberty and leading that effort?
None.
Okay. So look forward to that on the agenda for the next meeting for discussion. And let's move on now to item 7E, discussion of the DWI scandal. Mr. Jewell wanted a few words about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will be brief. I think everybody's aware of what I've labeled here, DWI scandal. And when it initially hit the press, I think we did ask the sheriff some questions about whether it was an area that we needed to be concerned about with respect to the sheriff's office. Since then, it has been brought to the sheriff's attention and the public, of course, that at least one deputy has been named as a suspect with respect to the illegal activity that apparently had been going on. I think as a board, there are at least a couple of areas that we need to be concerned about. I know the sheriff, as I mentioned before, had indicated a compliance officer to kind of monitor. And so I think we need to track that. I know that the public's sense of this is that the corruption is more rampant than being reported. And I know that we've seen hesitance by the public to bring complaints, particularly to the sheriff's office. I would hope that we could explore ways of being a repository, a place that the public could go to register concerns about this particularly. And I wonder if we need to advertise, publicize that we are there to give ear and perhaps anonymous ear, if necessary, to people who may have concerns or knowledge in that particular area. And so I just wanted to put it on our radar screen that it's out there bubbling, and that from an internal perspective about what's going on, we need to be, I think, available, whether it's bringing to the attention of the sheriff or questioning the sheriff. I can tell this board, as I was a judge, particularly in Metropolitan Court, a lot of the scheduling or hearings over there did revolve around the officers' court days. The public doesn't have an option. If
Right.
you send out a notice to the public, they're expected to be there. But the court said, okay, well, we want to make officers available to do the work in the public that need to be done. So we're not just going to schedule court and say be here. We're going to make it a little more available to them, and sheriff's office, APD, state police, you can tell us when these officers are most available. So, obviously I've been retired a while, maybe things have changed, but I would still think that at least there are elements of that. And so there should be internal mechanisms to track that. And we asked about that before. I don't know if we need to get more concerned and involved in that, but that's the internal piece. The external piece, of course, is being there for the public to say, man, I've got a complaint. I saw this, you know, whatever the complaint may be with respect to this particular topic. So that was what I wanted to mention to the board, Mr. Chairman. I'll stand for questions or you.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any comments regarding what Mr. Jewell just spoke of, the recent DWI cases that's been in the news involving local law enforcement?
That's the red line of it.
And was there a motion?
No motion, just, yeah, he just expressing a concern on the matter and raising it for the board's awareness. All right, no further discussion. All right, Mr. Robertson, thank you so much for printing that out.
Every printer broke in that.
That's quite all right. We can perhaps pause for just a minute or so and give members a chance to
So
review
Daniel,
that red
everything
line.
in blue is a change, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so it's
So
not just a few.
technically it's blue line.
Yeah,
I
so I
guess-
was I know, I was like, so everything in blue has been changed, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Either if
So with
it's
this,
crossed
yeah,
out, it's
there you go.
taken out. If it's in bold
And
letters.
understand that
I'm sorry to say,
If
yeah,
it's crossed out, it was taken
It's
out. If it's
been
in bold
deleted.
letters, it was added.
got it.
and understand that I don't believe unless you all resent this. Daniel, did you send it to the entire board?
I did. I
Okay,
did.
so-
Just now?
So they have
Everybody's
it.
got it. Thank
Members of
you.
the board that are joining virtually should have received an email if you have access to it from Mr. Robertson. The
If it's new,
They underlined it.
so the one that underlined,
Okay, and you said if it was bold,
that's the,
got
let
it.
me see how much.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, boy.
I know. There's a lot.
Mr. Chairman, this is Michael Wismer. Sorry to interrupt, but I have an appointment and I must drop off at this point. I still believe you have a quorum and I wish everybody well until the next meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, you don't lose quorum, so, thank you, Mr. Wismer, but we'll be all right. We'll carry on.
Thank you.
So even if it goes below the thing, you don't lose quorum? Oh, no, cool. He
I
just said
guess-
that so
I
he
guess-
didn't have to read
I
it.
guess that would be known as a
I
filibuster.
have a suggestion. May I make, may I?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I suggest that with any document that we revise, that we see the red line as well as, the new version. It eliminates all this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, and it gives us a
Agreed.
chance
Yeah.
rather than us trying to go
Well,
through.
having been chair, if I might, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jewell.
we've got limited staff, and, you know, we've got volunteers like the vice chair
We're
and,
volunteers.
Mr. Wismer and the chair that take on efforts like this. So, I mean, unless you're saying, you know, Danette needs to do everything, some of this has to work practically. And so annually, I guess we are supposed to pass a resolution for the Open Meetings Act, and it appears an appropriate time to make any procedural changes. But I don't know that we've got the mechanism, Dr. Layton, to always, you know, have a red line version
Well,
of stuff.
when there is one, let's see it.
So
When the whole
anything
board
that
sees it.
changes, is that what
Yes,
you're
when
asking?
there is a
Dr.?
red line, let's all see it.
Yeah.
And then there isn't a question.
Right.
That's the advantage. My meter is about to expire. I couldn't get a space in the lot. So please excuse me, you still have a quorum. I assume we'll meet in 2 months. I'll wait to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Layton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask that, make a motion?
You may make a motion, absolutely.
Just to table this to the next meeting, and then we can all see what those changes are without having to rush through all of the pieces that have been changed and been edited and or deleted.
There's been a motion to table, the revised rules and procedures until next meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been, moved and seconded to table the rules and procedures as amended until next meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Danette, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Not at all. Okay. Tommy Jewell,
Yes, whatever.
Ray,
No,
So we're voting
Walker.
to.
we're voting
table
to
it.
table it.
Walker,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Nay.
Dr. Layden is gone. Debbie Strong,
No.
Mr. Clark is absent. Mr. Wismer stepped out. And Ms. Giacchi.
I agree that we should table it. Yes.
So we have a tie. 3 yeses, 3 nos. So goes to the chair, right?
So the rules of order defer to
Goes
the chair, even though the chair had already voted.
Someone has, there's not a tiebreaker. We don't have a quorum, so someone has to be the tiebreaker. It's always the chair.
I am going to vote we table until the next meeting.
Thank you. And this has been said now, Daniel, right?
It did actually, for you, I sent the wrong Elena the email because they emailed me on the way out saying that.
That's what I'm not gonna. So someone in the county is getting this going. Oh my God, what do I have to do? They put
Yeah,
more
they
work
think
on
they're-
me.
Some Elena is worried now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's wrap this up. It looks like the other item on the agenda, second to last, is announcement of the next board meeting. We decided every other month, if that's my recollection, so that would put us in April. Any recommendations? We've been historically doing the second Friday of the month, although this month was a bit odd due to schedules. Anyone have any recommendations on the next meeting in March?
So just so you know, the
In April?
18th,
I mean, in April, my apologies, yes.
so you guys know, just put this out there. On the 18th, the county is closed.
Okay.
It's a holiday, so
What's the holiday?
spring break.
Spring break is now holiday.
It's just, so we do not,
It's spring
I
break.
guess everywhere else it's Easter.
Oh.
There you go. Yes.
Okay, that would be that week.
But we don't call it that. We call it spring
Here
break.
it's spring break.
So prior,
Okay.
when we were meeting every month, if we were going the second Friday of the
11th.
month, it would be April 11th.
Yep.
Any objections to April 11th? Friday, April 11th?
Same time.
Seeing no objections, same time, same location? Seeing no objections? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Also,
So move.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.
thank you,
Let me
Mr.
just-
Chairman. Definitely have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me.
Madam Vice Chair, well done.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
You.
Hey, Danette, will you call me on my mobile, please?
I will call you in your